We manifest what we believe. The secret to truly manifesting what you desire is to heal the beliefs that block those desires, period.
Gabby Bernstein, a role model for spiritual seekers.
Anything is possible, my friends. Anything is possible.
We have the legendary Gabby Bernstein in the house.
This is addressing the actual neural redirection in the brain. Because when you practice this 4-step method, what's happening is you're rewiring your experience and your relationship to these parts of who you are.
Wow.
The life you're experiencing is a result of the roles that you play. We have extreme experiences and we exile them. Young, traumatized children that had nowhere to go, no one to care for them, no one to support them.
What's the best way that they can start manifesting in 2025 and beyond?
So there's 4 steps.
If you want to learn the #1 secret to manifesting and how to rewire your limiting beliefs to create abundance in your life, this video is for you. We have Gabby Bernstein on. I am so excited for you to dive into this episode. But if you can, do me a big favor. Please click the like button on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it is going to help us continue to get massive guests, big content for you moving forward. And I want you to be notified first because we have some big guests coming up over the next few weeks and months. So please like this video, click the subscribe button, and leave a comment during this episode of your biggest insight because I think you're gonna love it. Welcome back everyone to the School of Greatness. Very excited about our guest. We have my dear friend, my sister, Gabby Bernstein in the house. So good to see you. Thanks for being here in my basement of greatness, in my home.
It's the home of greatness.
Yes.
It
Yeah, it's
really,
fun.
I walked in and I was like, wow, somebody made your home for you.
Exactly,
Your
Martha.
dream,
Yeah.
but somebody built your dream home
I
for you.
know. I saw this online and I was like, there's a whole story around manifesting this
There
actually,
you go.
which I think is really interesting. Martha and I were looking for homes for like a year, right? Just kind of like initially just curious, but then we were like, okay, let's get serious about thinking of buying a home. And I saw this one on Zillow, but it was like so expensive. It was absurd. I was like, this would be 5 years away, 7 years away to be able to buy something like this with the price tag that it had on Zillow, but it had everything. I was like, I want a basketball court. I want the sauna. I want everything, right? It had a movie theater, it had a basement, which doesn't happen in LA. And I was like, if I'm going to buy a home, I want the home for the next 10, 15 years. I don't want to buy something that's almost what I want. I want to get what I want. Otherwise, I'll just stay in an apartment for the next few years and wait. And then this thing went off the market. And I was like, oh, it's sold. Okay, I guess it wasn't for us. 6 months later, it comes back, but way cheaper. It was still more than what the budget was, but it was like, I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance. And what if we negotiated and really tried to work through it? And we got it exactly the price that I was like willing to pay.
Yep.
So it all came together. I just had to be patient. I had to keep setting the intention. And also it was not settling for something that I didn't want.
3 things you just said: patient,
Uh-huh.
setting the intention, and not settling for something that you don't want.
Yes,
Those are huge
I know.
qualities of a super attractor, which of course you embody, but patience is probably the biggest one
Yeah.
because it's when we're when we're thirsty or we're inserting ourselves or we're controlling. It's just completely the opposite of allowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm an impatient person by nature. So
Yeah.
it's like, I want this thing now.
I know.
I want it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
You're probably similar in a sense. So we have to
100%.
teach ourselves how to allow the patience to come into our lives.
I think that as impatient as I am, I'm also really in just tremendous faith. I think as like 20 years being a spiritual student, really my whole life, I feel like I've been a spiritual student. I have such a strong, ingrained knowing and trust in timing.
You do. Is there ever a time you get really frustrated where you're like, the thing that I've been intending and wanting and desiring is not even coming close to fruition?
Only the small things.
Really? Like what?
Like often with work-related things, because much like you, and I think much like many entrepreneurs, we happen to just sort of see things further than maybe, or think about the process or see the big picture faster than somebody else might. And that doesn't mean that that's better or worse. Then you need the people that are like, wait, slow it down and let me figure out the plan, right? One can't exist without the other. But because I have such a visionary way of thinking, I can be so 5, 6, 7, 10 steps ahead that and then other people around me are kind of like, "Whoa, peel it back." That's when I'm like, "Wait, no, 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 I wanna move things faster."
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I have a sense of urgency around knowing that this is I keep saying lately, like, it's go time. It's go time, not just for the individual, but also I feel as a teacher, it's go time. I have to make sure that I am uh, able to touch as many people as possible.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
crucial time right
Yeah.
now.
It is. It always seems like it's a go time, but specifically this time, it feels like it's even more with what's happening in the world. This book is really exciting. I'm excited to talk about it. It's called Self Help. This is your chance to change your life. Make sure you guys pick this up. But in the forward, Dick Schwartz, who's the founder of IFS, Internal Family Systems, says that you illustrate the ability to show compassion and love to all parts of you, even the ones that have ruined your life, and to do it in a very specific way that allows them to transform. How do we manifest something that we really want or desire in our life when there are parts of us that have completely traumatized and ruined our lives? Is there an ability to create the life we desire and want without healing or transforming traumas and pain that ruins us and cripples us still?
We manifest what we believe.
Mm,
So if we are stuck in a core wound, traumatized story, a neural loop of fight, flight, freeze, we're living in a way where we're s- so afraid or blocked because of those core belief systems. What ends up happening is that no matter how hard we try to manifest, no matter how much we deepen spiritually or how much we hold the vision, like you said, right, and have the intention, things may show up because your focus is redirected, but then it may show up and you can't keep it, or it falls apart, or things just aren't in the flow. And that lack of flow is often truly because of the core wounds from our
really?
very early, early,
Mm,
early years.
yeah.
And so my it's funny, this is my most therapeutic book. I went and I got trained in internal family systems therapy. It's a therapy that I've used for a decade. And with my own therapist, it's coming up on a decade, maybe 9 years now. And then I got trained in the model and I was so moved by it that I wrote this more therapeutic book. Now, while this is my most therapeutic self-help book, it's very spiritual too, but it's probably the most important manifesting book.
Mm, why?
Not because it's got lessons on manifesting, but because the secret to truly manifesting what you desire is to heal the beliefs that block those desires.
Mm.
Period.
So if we believe that we are not worthy of something,
It won't happen.
what are we saying about ourselves and what's possible for us?
Well, most people, I think, are walking through life with beliefs of being unworthy, unlovable, inadequate, not good enough. Maybe they feel worthy in one area of their life, but they're completely blocked in another. And so the areas in our life where we lack that confidence and that clarity and that connection and that calmness that you talked about when you were manifesting the house, sort of like the just relax, knowing it'll come if it's meant to be. The places in our life where we don't have that are the places where we have the most wounds.
Mhm.
The if you were to say, "Okay, I'm really great at attracting things into my career, but my relationships, I'm just a show." Okay, well, what is the core wound that's tied to those relationships? What happened to you as a child? What do you know about relationships? Was there trauma there? And this is sort of self-help 101 or therapy 101. We all kind of understand this on a kind of in the periphery. We're like, "Oh, yeah, I get that. This thing happened to me, and then I'm gonna hold on to it." But this book is like, "No, no, no, no. The life you're experiencing is a result of the roles that you play, the parts that you play each and every single day. The world is like this theatrical event that we show up for on a day-to-day basis, and the parts of us that show up are different characters in our life.
That's interesting.
These extreme parts, these addicted parts, these fearful parts. So we're like lots of different actors in the show that is our life.
It sounds like every human being is kind of schizophrenic
That's
or has
that's
multiple personality types.
so in IFS, internal family systems therapy, I'm going to break this down. So we just
Yes.
talk around it. Let's just break it down from the get-go. Okay. So my gift in this lifetime is to just simplify big ideas. And my gift to Dick Schwartz, who's one of my cherished friends, the founder of IFS, is to take his extraordinary body of work that healed my life and to translate it and demystify it for
And
people that
simplify it.
and
Yeah.
simplify it and democratize it. So here we are. Internal family systems therapy is not about your external family. It's about an inner family of parts of us. So we have these lots of little children inside.
Which sounds crazy to think about.
It does and it doesn't. Let me keep it simple, right? Have you ever said a part of me gets really outraged when Marta does this, or a part of me flips out when I can't control something?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, yes, you're kind of familiar with those parts of yourself. You even said it earlier. A part of me is really, I don't even know if you said a part of me maybe, but you're like, I can be really impatient.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That
Certain
impatience
moments.
is a
Yeah.
part, right?
Uh-huh.
And these parts of us, often the extreme ones, are protection mechanisms. So the controlling aspects, the managing of the day-to-day things that we have to get done, the perfectionism, the overthinking, the playing small, these extreme roles that we play in momentary situations in our life, or really sometimes all day, every day, are protection mechanisms. So the extreme, so if you looked at your life and you're saying, okay, there's parts of me that I don't like, or there's parts of me or ways I act out that feel extreme, or there's behaviors that I have that I just can't kick, addiction, overeating, drinking, and you see these things that you do, these behaviors that you have that you just don't know how to change. It's because they're very, very young parts of yourself. They've been around for a very long time.
They haven't grown up yet.
They never got a chance to grow up, these parts of you. And
And
they've
where do
been
these
there.
parts of us live?
Okay, so let me keep it simple.
Yeah.
So they keep coming back to the simplicity, okay? Like I'm putting my, okay, let's keep it
How many
simple.
parts of us does each
We can
individual
have
have?
many, many parts of us. So let's keep it simple. So very young, we grow up where we come into this world, we're like these perfect little people. We're so happy, everything's beautiful. Hopefully, we enter the world in a safe, peaceful way. And from a very young age, we start to experience the burdens of the world. A parent that doesn't have a strong attachment. In the case for you and myself, having sexual abuse as children. So sometimes it could be extreme traumas like that, or it could be something along the lines of being bullied in the classroom, or being told that you're stupid by your teacher. These moments in time are so extreme for our child brains to process. We don't have the resources, we don't have the brain capacity, and oftentimes we don't have the parents or caregivers to help us process these extreme
They don't
disturbances.
have the tools either to teach us.
Or in the case of you and me, we don't have anyone to tell.
Right.
Right? Or we're too afraid to tell.
Yeah.
Or in my case, I dissociated, didn't even have the memory, right? And so what do? We build up protection mechanisms. For me, one of those protection mechanisms was straight up dissociation, like left my body, like dissociated from reality. For others, it could be, and this is young, at a young, young age, it could be, okay, this thing happened to you as a child, and all of a sudden you go into this extreme protection mechanism of trying to be perfect because you had this shameful experience. So perfection makes you feel safe. Or you give my son for an example. I have a 6-year-old son. When he was 3 years old, he was in a Montessori program, and so it was 3 to 6-year-olds. There was a 6-year-old in his class, and he was just out of diapers. And that 6-year-old was sort of like, who is this 3-year-old? I don't want anything to
Right,
do
right,
with him. I
right.
mean, it was
Get
just like
away from
kind of
me or
bossy
whatever.
to
Yeah.
him. And at a very young age, Ollie learned, like, I got to be the boss because that was so extreme. This kid is bigger. I want to be like him. He hates me. He tells me he hates me. He tells me to leave him alone. Which just kids are mean. But my little boy has this thing of, I got to be the boss. So he's got this misguided belief, I need to be a boss. So what does he do? He walks around with his Nerf gun, and he walks around like with his shooter. And he's like, I'm the boss. It's like little innocent 6-year-old. But he wants to be the boss because he's protecting himself from that feeling from 3 years old. Okay? I watched this whole part develop in a person. So an extreme thing happens, big or small. In the case of Ollie, it was a 6-year-old, right? In the case of me, it was something much more extreme. Hopefully, Ollie never has to experience that. But whatever it is, we have extreme experiences. and we exile them. We exile them. Those are called exiled parts of us.
Exiled parts.
These are the little, young, traumatized children that had nowhere to go, no one to care for them, no one to support them. And we said, I'm going to lock that up. I'm going to send them into the basement. Don't want to ever talk to that person, see that part of me ever again. And at 3 years old, 5 years old, whatever it is, we start to decide, I'm going to do this to protect myself from feeling
Yes.
this. So Ollie's the perfect example. I got bullied. I'm going to start to be the boss so that I never have to feel that fear again of that bully.
Right. So and does everyone build these defense mechanisms up?
Everyone.
They look different for each person.
Yeah. And then lots of different protectors. And there's 2 types of protectors. So you're still tracking with me here. I know you are. I just want to make sure that the audience is still tracking with me. I'm going to take this slow. So exiled parts of the young, traumatized little children don't want to feel those feelings. So they're too extreme, right, Lewis? It's like, how could a child, you can't understand it. Your brain's not able to process it. Most adult brains don't have the ability to process that. Or most parents would say, you're fine, just get shut down.
Yes.
If you even did bring it to somebody, you'd be shut down, right? Especially or in cases of, real extreme trauma, you don't feel safe enough to talk about it. Shut it down. Then you build up these protection mechanisms, protector parts. And there's 2 types of protector parts. But in my book, I really just focus on one type. So we'll stay close to that. There's managers and firefighters. And so the managers are who we talk about in the book, because the firefighters are who I want people to go to therapy to work with. But the managers are the control freak. For me, I'm just going to name my managers, like one would be like Knives Out is another one I named. Like, if you with me, I'm like, knives are out.
Right.
Like,
Destroy you. Yeah. That's a manager.
Hypervigilance
Yeah.
was a manager for me. Just sort of like anxiety was kind of a manager for me. Think about it, anxiety, right? If I'm anxious and I'm, moving so fast, like when you first met me, totally out of my body, hadn't remembered the trauma yet, totally scared. It's going to cry when I think about that time, that anxiety was actually a form of protection.
Of course.
Because if I'm in anxious state, I don't have to feel the horror and this fear and terror of that other state. So that's a manager, the parts of us that are with us all day long, managing the big feelings of the exile. Okay. And then when the managers don't work anymore, like let's say something very big happens in your life, something extreme, and the managing is no longer working, that's when the firefighters come in. The firefighters will do whatever it takes to put out the fire of those impermissible feelings. And that's when you pick up the drugs, pick up the workaholism, pick up the alcohol, the sex, the porn, the binging, the extreme addictive parts of ourselves. And those are the most extreme parts of us are the ones that are working the hardest to keep us safe from those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's good news. You ready for the good news?
Yeah.
We all have an inner parent inside of us. So those are all the young children inside, right? The exiles, the managers, the firefighters, right? The protectors and the exiles. They're all like running our world, right? Where like one trigger happens, this protector shows up. Another trigger happens, it's like protector to protector. It's like a boxing match all day long, walking through life.
Exhausting.
Exhausting. Why do people have burnout? Why do people have stress? Why do people have
Chronic pain.
chronic pain? Of course, there's a whole chapter in the book called Body Parts, how the body, like physical pain, is a protector.
Yes.
Like if I have back pain, I don't have to feel my childhood wounds. We're going to get into that. But the good news is that we all have what Dick Schwartz has coined is self with a capital S. And self is our adult, undamaged, resourced part of who we are. It's the truth of who we are. It's the spirit of who we are. It's the God within us. It is an energy. And self has 8 C qualities: compassion, calm, connection, creativity, courage, clarity, commitment. I'm missing one. I don't even know if it's I always miss is C. Like they're all in there. So and connectedness. I think I got to them. We'll find the 8 C's in the book, and we'll get
Yes. Curiosity, compassion, calmness, clarity, creativity, connectedness, courage, and confidence.
It's so funny. Confidence is the one I always miss, but it's the one that I often feel we're quite connected to. So I won't forget confidence anymore.
There you go.
So I'm going to really try to keep this simple. So just think about it like you have an inner parent. And
So everyone has an inner parent.
we all do. And let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it super simple. You know those times in your life when, let's say, Marta came to you and she was really struggling with something. And your heart was filled up with compassion. No matter how extreme the thing that happened to her, you just felt connected to her. You were a calm presence for her. You had deep compassion for her experience. You had clarity on how to communicate. You felt like had the courage to speak up for what was true. And that really it wasn't even what you said, but it was that presence alone that helped her.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
That's self energy
With a capital S.
with a capital S. And the
The
thing is
adult
that
self.
it's your true self.
Yes.
It's your essence. There's a really beautiful quote in the book that I share that's about how self is like the sun behind the clouds. And it's there, but the clouds are just in the way. So self is always been there, right? You feel self in Shavasana. You feel self after a long run. You feel self. We're in self right now. Like this is our creative force, right? We're in the flow. Like we have so much connection. We have so much creativity, right? We have clarity about what we're talking about. This is self energy right here. Like if you're watching and you're feeling elevated, excited, calm, soothed, that's because our self energy is coming through the screen or through the audio. And so we all have it. It's that we have to release the blocks to the presence of it.
And how we release the blocks is how?
So
Is that through the core beliefs of like understanding
it's a
core beliefs?
4-step practice that I put in the
It's a
book.
4-step
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The whole book. So what I've done is I've taken this huge therapy, internal family systems therapy, super in the zeitgeist right now. God bless. It's the most valuable healing modality, particularly for trauma. And it's the kind of thing that I felt only people that were going to find their way to an IFS therapist were going to get this. And I was sitting at a dinner with Dick Schwartz. I hosted a dinner for him. Just again, he's the founder of IFS, started this about 43 years ago, 44 years ago. And I was sitting next to Dick, and this was shortly after I'd taken the training and we'd become friends. And I looked at him, and we're at a dinner I'm hosting for him. And it's like having Lady Gaga at my house. And I look at him and I'm like, I have to tell you something. I'm scared to tell you this, but I want to write a book called Self-Help. Self-Help. And I want to make IFS self-help. And he looked at me, his eyes just like widened. And he was like, I've always wanted somebody to do that. And in the foreword, he says, I've always been looking for that person with the self-help spiritual bona fides. And then Gabby's here.
Wow, that's cool.
And so that's one of the greatest privileges of my life is to take someone else's body of work and translate it.
Right. And you created a 4-step process
The
for this.
4-step is not IFS. It's an IFS-informed self-help practice. And that's really important for me to say, Louis, because if you're going into IFS therapy, you have a therapist with you. You're doing a 6-step inquiry, almost like an interview with the parts. It's like an unburdening process. You can work with firefighters and exiles. And I am not doing that. I am not a therapist. I'm a spiritual self-help author and teacher. I am trained in internal family systems therapy, but I'm not a therapist. So it was really important for me to take this and make it IFS informed.
Yes.
So there's 4 steps.
IFS approved.
IFS approved, IFS informed. It's backed, with Dick's blessing, and it's the way that you can take this model into your own hands safely. Safely is a really important point.
Yes.
Because I'm not trying to guide you to those exiled parts. The book is not trying to work with firefighters. That would be, and I say all throughout the book, like if this happens, if you want to, you're with a firefighter, there's an exile, here's an IFS therapist registry, go find somebody. But I'm trying to help you access these managers, the extreme parts that are with you all the time, day to day. And through a 4-step inquiry, let's self-help.
Okay.
So you let me know when you're ready for it.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I feel like I'm just so excited about this. This is my first real interview about this, so it's like very thrilling to me. Questions before I go on?
Well, there's something you said in chapter 3 about core beliefs, because I think a lot of people hear about their behaviors and beliefs, and that we have this a block based on our beliefs, whether that's a childhood belief or a current belief as an adult. And you say that the hard truth is that although we can make surface level adjustments to our actions, true change can only happen when we heal from within and address the core beliefs that block us from manifesting the life we desire. So I guess, would this 4-step process help us address the core beliefs that are blocking us in manifesting what we want? And if
Exactly.
so, then what is that
Okay,
process?
so first of all, 100%, that's exactly the answer. This is the 4-step process. The other thing is how many personal development programs have we sat in where someone's like, "Oh, you have limiting beliefs and the limiting beliefs are blocking you." But then you're like, "How the do I get rid of these limiting beliefs?" Right? Like, there you never leave and you're like, "Okay, I know the playbook," right? For changing. Maybe you have a little tip here or manifesting tool there. And look, I've written this is my 10th book. So I have 9 other books with other practices which are all work, all are valuable, all have their own purpose, right? Particularly spiritual practices in these other books. And they all are bringing you to self for sure. But this is addressing the actual neural redirection in the brain. Because when you practice this 4-step method, what's happening is you're rewiring your experience and your relationship to these parts of who you are.
So you're connecting higher self currently to the self that was destructive or harmed, or the
To the
managers,
parts.
the
Yeah.
parts,
Yeah.
the manager or firefighter parts of
That's
you
correct, baby.
that cause stress or anxiety or control or perfectionism or whatever it might be.
You're taking all these little people inside of you that have these belief systems that are holding you back, and you're bringing the internal parent of self to them to help them.
So it's almost like we have multiple personalities or memories or people in us, which is weird to
We
say,
don't
but
even have to say it like that.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
parts of us, like parts of who we
Multiple
are.
parts of who we
Yeah.
are. And there are some parts that are wounded that we get to heal. And the more of those parts that we can have a higher relationship with, a more
Self to part connection.
harmonious relationship
Harmonious is the
with,
word. That's right.
if you can create a harmonious relationship from the higher self of you to the wounded self parts of you, then things are going to start to flow better in your life
Oh, well, yeah.
in every area.
Well, because think about it like this, like my controller part, I've done so much work with her. You can gender these parts of you. They have no gender. They could have the opposite gender. It doesn't like sort of whatever is intuitive for you. My parts are female. So I have that controller part that you knew for so long, or the anxiety part, right? Even to think about all where we were maybe 10 years ago in these conversations to where I am with you right now, and how much more self energy you feel in this moment. It's gonna make me
Yeah.
cry. It means so
Yeah.
much to me that you've been
Yeah.
there with me
It's been like what,
because
13, 14 years,
14
15
years.
years maybe since I've known you.
And when you
2008, I met you.
And when you first met me, like, I was, like, parts on fire, right? Like, literally on fire. I
Yeah.
was a
Both of
workaholic,
us. Yeah.
really extreme, really extreme. I was sober, but, like, workaholism. I was just extreme anxiety, didn't know that I had trauma, so I was living in hypervigilance. I was so scared all the time. I was so controlling. It was just like, I was doing you can still be going through hard things and do beautiful things in the world.
Yeah. You can still get results in life.
Yeah, and do good, but you might be having a lot of struggle, right? And so as a result of this model and what I'm going to teach everybody today and living this and developing this and practicing this and every day checking in with these parts of me, checking in with these parts of me, I've unburdened them. And so it's not that they go away, is that they're not extreme anymore.
Interesting. So the parts that were wounded are still inside of you.
They're no longer wounded.
You healed them.
They're in their beautifully developed chrysalis. They're new, for instance. The part of me that was a controller, I mean, that part did good things, right? She wrote 10 books in
Yeah.
14 years, right?
Took action, got things done.
Yes. But now she can be in the flow, right? Like now she can be like, I don't have to force my way to like get this thing to there. Da, da, da. I'm like, oh, you know what, Lewis? Like, I'm gonna be in LA. Like, does that work? I'll be there. Like, I can show up with an energy. She's on top, but she's trusting,
She's not forcing.
not forcing anything. She's just relaxed, like in the presence. So it's like a really great quality to have that control part present because she gets things done, but without craziness, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Chaos.
Without
And so
chaos.
these parts of us that once controlled us or hurt us to try to protect us, because they all had an intention to serve us, but they didn't help the self. really at our highest
They're
self.
blocking self. They're blocking
Blocking
self. Yeah.
self, but they're an attempt to try to protect us.
Totally.
These parts of us, when we can have a relationship, a harmonious relationship with them through healing and mending those wounds, then we can use them for good.
That's correct. Yeah, you're so great at like digesting and bringing it back. Yeah, it's beautiful. That's self right there in action. Clarity. Clarity is one of those qualities of self. So you have such a good job of listening, thinking, pulling it together, and bringing it back.
And it sounds like we could, by doing this self-help work, and by following this 4-step process that we're going to cover in a second and just going through the book, it sounds like when we can start to have a different relationship with these parts of us that have caused us pain and suffering, but also try to protect us, if we can start to have a new relationship by mending those relationships, it can get a lot better. But it doesn't mean those things can come back at some point if we don't keep having a relationship with them in a healthy way. So you might be 6 months, I feel better, but then something triggers you and you go back to the wounded part of you that says, I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
You need to control this. You need to protect this. You need to be a perfectionist in this moment, whatever it is, hypervigilance. And so it's a constant relationship and a conversation of checking in, it sounds like.
It's called the check-in process.
Okay,
4-step
cool.
check-in.
All right, here we go.
And I like that because everybody has a few minutes to check in, right? Or a few seconds to check in throughout the day. And the simplicity of it being this 4 steps of checking in with the part makes it such that you can have this relationship to the part rather than why are you doing this? It's why the pain, right? That's like what Gabby always says, like not why the addiction, why the pain. And so by every moment when you notice a trigger or you have this space in your body to like see, oh, I'm out of alignment right now. In those moments, checking in are these moment to moment experiences of presence with bringing self to these parts. So I'll break it down for you.
Give me a specific example in your life that may be a part of you that comes up sometimes that causes you anxiety or stress, or
And how I would do the steps.
your team are like, oh, Gabby's in that mode. Her part of her, is coming out in this moment. Okay,
They're watching right now. They're like,
oh
oh,
shoot,
are you sure
she's
you
being a
want to go there?
perfectionist, or she's over controlling, or she's not whatever
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. Yeah.
So whatever that part is for you that maybe has tended to come up a lot in the past, can you give me an example of how you could use this while you're sharing what these 4 steps are?
Okay. So the protector that's freaking out, right? She's freaking out because something isn't going the way she wants, right? So she's the freaking out protector. Actually doing a lot of work with her in therapy right now, so it's nice. And I do IFS therapy, so of course. And she's having a freak out, like, some email isn't good, or like the things aren't working as fast. The team is not working as fast as possible, or if she feels like she has a burden belief, right? This freak out girl, her belief is if I don't do it, nobody else will.
Mm.
Or they.
Zing.
And so she is maybe just like, and she also has another, and I'm cursing a lot, but just bleep me, okay? But she has another phrase that she says, which is like, what the is going on here? And when I think about her, I think about, okay, so let me give you the check-in process. So let's say I notice she's coming in, she's showing up, and I'm like, uh-oh, I notice her. I have enough awareness to be like, she's here, she needs help. So I need self to help, self-help me. I'll say that again. I need self to help, self-help me. And have that awareness. I choose to check in. Step 1, choose to check in.
Make
Okay,
a choice.
yes, because remember, parts are like little children. So if you try to force something on a little child, like if I try to go to Ollie and say to him, bro, what the hell is going on? You seem upset. Let's talk about it. He's like, no, mommy, like, get away, mommy. Right. So there has to be some buy-in. Okay. So there's some buy-in, and I'm going to choose to check in.
So is that the adult self choosing to check in, or is that the child self choosing to check in?
It's both. Okay.
Okay.
So it's the choice
You're both
is
choosing
choice
to
is a
connect.
self-like quality, but the part has to make the choice.
So it's like what you said with your son. If he's not willing to reciprocate, like saying, let's talk about what's going on, and he's like, no, screw you, mommy, or whatever he's saying, then that's not a check-in. Both parts need to check in.
Yeah. It has to be my presence of self and his willingness.
Willingness to receive or talk.
Openness. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So
Not that your son would say,
choosing,
"Screw you, mommy," but I'm just saying,
you
like,
never know.
yeah, yeah,
You never know.
we
If
would
they
say
get older,
16.
it's
Yeah, yeah,
6 years old. They might say things like that. He would say, "Screw you, Mom." I'd be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Nah." So it makes me think of like Cartman. Do you know that I do a really good Cartman? Screw you, man. I'm getting him.
That's
Okay,
good.
I'm
That's
really good
good.
at it.
That's good.
Okay, so that
Choose to
was
check in.
so choose to check in, detour from Cartman.
Uh huh.
Choose to check in. So you have this awareness that the part's triggered and you're saying, okay, I'm going to choose to check in right now. So you step one, that's it. Choose. And if you know that you feel that buy-in, like, okay, the part's ready to go, we can keep going, right? Choosing to check in is also just sometimes even having the awareness that you need to check in, because that's like step one. Step two is curiosity. Become curious. These are all C qualities, remember, right? So it's like acting as if. And so the curiosity is so I'm in this place where this manager's up and she's like, what the going on here? Nobody, I have to do everything. Nobody else will do it. And so I choose to check in with her and I become curious and I start to notice the feelings and the thoughts and the sensations inside. I start asking her questions like, where do you feel that in your body? And she's like, no, I'm not breathing. And there's tension in my chest. And I start to say, what kind of thoughts or sensations? And her thoughts are like, what the is going on here?
Why is this happening? Yeah.
And I ask her for any images or visions. And she shows me my 6-year-old self in my dining room with my pigtails. And I'm screaming, no bumps, no bumps. Because the only way that I could find control in this out of control life that I had was to control the bumps in my pigtails.
To make your hair like look perfect or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this girl that's now this adult that's screaming, what the is going on here is the little girl. This is the vision she shows me. The little girl screaming, no bumps with the pigtails. So start having I flash out this information about her. You can see I'm like, I could tear up as I think about her. And that connection can you feel that connection I'm having with her right now?
Yes.
That connection shows me that there's some self energy here. Okay. And so as soon as you start to feel some kind of connection to that part, the third step happens. And by the way, you can spend as much time as you want in curiosity. You could just ask more questions, let the part speak. The parts want to speak. Step 3, compassionate connection. So I can look at that little girl and I can ask her, little Gabby, what do you need right now? And right away she'll speak back. She'll say, at times she said things like, I need a mom,
Mm.
or I need to rest, or I need to play. I need to scream. I need, they just speaking for what they need, right? I need to speak up. I need to be heard. And so the little voice gets to speak up and say what they need. And once that response comes through internally, the fourth step is to check for C qualities of self. So you scan your inner system and you ask yourself, do I feel any connection? Yes, right now in this moment, I just did the check-in with little Gabby and I feel connected to her. Do I feel compassion? Right now I feel so much compassion for her. Do I feel clarity? Yes. She just showed me it's a little girl, right? She showed me exactly where she was. I feel clear what she needs. Do I feel calm? I feel calm, even more calm right now, just having done that check-in process out loud with you. Connected. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Courageous. Much more courageous. Clarity, I think I said. Confidence. I got
The
confidence.
one that you're remembering now, confidence.
Creativity.
Yeah. Yes.
Check for C's. Even if you just have one C quality of self show up, you feel a little bit more calm. You feel a little bit more compassionate. You feel a little more connected. You've done the 4 steps. You've done the 4 steps, even if you just get to check in, to choose to check in. Just even the decision to check in for 2 seconds is the check-in process.
Because if you're not starting step 1, then you're just going to stay in
Overriding.
fight or flight,
Yeah.
control freak, anxiety, or whatever your manager is doing.
Your manager won't have enough of a pause to pivot, because we can become blended with the managers, which means we believe that we are that, right? Those times in your life when you get so worked up, right? And you're like, I am the only one that can do this. Or, the only way to live life is to fight back and tell everybody else that they're wrong. And it's the only way to live. And if anybody challenges that, like they're gone, right? So we're blended with these parts.
Right.
So the only way to start this check-in process is to slightly unblend by choosing to check in.
Interesting. Because otherwise you are those parts in that moment.
Yeah, and there's gonna be plenty of times when we're so blended that we can't do the check-in until 2 hours later, 2 days later, even
Until you
2
can
months later.
reflect. You just take a nap, you
Yeah,
sleep,
you can check in hours
you're
later.
out of the environment.
Most of the time when people start this work, they're gonna find themselves the next day being like, "Ooh, what happened there?" And then just check in, right? But you should start with little that's why I wanna work with managers because this is about a process, right? It's like making it a habit. Do it with the small moments, right? So, like, just this morning, like, or yesterday, right? I arrived in LA. I was, like, kind of overwhelmed by the energy. I didn't love, like, the view out of my hotel room. This it sounds like a luxury problem, but, like, the energy is really
Of
important for
course.
me.
Yeah, if you're staying on a wall or
I'm
something,
staring
yeah.
at, like, a Chase Bank, and I was just like, where," I was, like, in this and then you're like, I wanna have a good vibe right now. And so I was seeing that controller come in, and she wasn't too bad, but she did ask my assistant to call 5 other hotels and, like, very lovingly asked. And at night, she's like, "I don't wanna ever come back to LA." Like, she's like and so instead of, like actually, I did fire off an email to my PR team, was like, "Cancel an October trip," and then I was like, "Chill, okay, okay." So I came back and I rewrote an email, I was like, "Don't cancel the October trip," and then I checked in with her
Wow.
right before bed,
Wow,
okay?
okay.
And so she wasn't like that's just like a day this is a day-to-day thing that normally we're just acting out in these ways and we don't actually and then maybe we come out of it because we just got some logic, but we never tend to it. And so I was like, "Oh, what do you need, honey?" And so I just checked in with her and I heard her and she's like, I just want to feel like warm and safe. And I just want to feel like I've got a good energy around me. And what do I need right now? Like, I need to find the right place to land when I get here. And I need to just sort of sort those things out. And I started to feel calmer as I checked for those seed qualities. And so this is where the manifesting comes in. Okay. So she calmed down last night. Okay. She slept great.
That's good.
She woke up. She's like, I'm going to see Lewis today. She worked out. It was like 5 a.m. because I'm on East Coast time. I was like, let's go work out. I was feeling great. I sat down, I makeup done, was like super chill. And I'm like, I think to my makeup artist who you met, Christina, and I was like, Christina, I'm like, I like had this whole drama yesterday. I'm like, all I really want is like high vibe energy, super connect. I want to find my hotel in LA. I have to be out here all the time. I want to just make it my home, like leave a toothbrush. Like I want that. And then like I'm coming back in October and I really want to have like a retreaty vibe for 2 days because I need to write when I'm here and it's a weekend when I'm here. I'm like, this is what I want. And I was like, it'll happen. Like the universe is going to deliver it. I call our mutual friend Jeff Krasno because I was like
Uh-huh. Oh, he's got an amazing
because I got
place.
the hit and I was like, just call Jeff, right?
He's
And I
got the whole
called Jeff,
commune. It's
but I
like
wasn't even
it's
calling
a
Jeff.
sanctuary,
I was
you know?
calling him about something totally
Yeah, yeah,
different,
yeah.
okay? I called Jeff and I'm like, "Hey, and then I was like, "Oh, you know what?" As I'm talking to him, I'm like, 'cause he told me about getting on the podcast. And I was like, "Hey, what, bro?" I'm like, "Wait, when I come in LA, you're gonna be doing a retreat in Topanga." And I was like, "Wait a second." I'm like, "Let me come for 2 days in Topanga. Like, is there a place for me to write? And can I like come do yoga with Skylar? And can I like you take your class and eat food with you guys?" And he's like, "Of course you can." And I was like, and then I was like, wait a second, hold on. So I just found my 2 days, my little retreat to go write, right? And then I look at my calendar. I'm like, wait a second. I have a podcast interview in Topanga on Friday. So I'm going to be showing up in Topanga. And then I'm on the phone with Jeff and he's like, you got to call Robin Burzin. She's in LA. Call Burrs right now. She's staying at the Soho House. I was like, wait a second. I'm a member at the Soho House. There's a Soho House here?
Yeah.
And all this time I thought there was no hotel. So I'm like, hold on a second. So I call Robin. She's like, get in the hotel. I call the hotel. They have one room left. Get in the hotel. I was saving so much money going over to this other hotel that I want to be with one of my best friends tonight. I find my hotel that I want. I mean, it sounds like a stupid luxury thing, but look how fast the manifesting was. And then boom, I was in the flow. Here I am. And I've got this whole next trip in October totally sorted with the trip to Topanga, the hotel that's going to make me feel safe, the community I want to be with, the creative space to do my writing. Now, did a controlling type A person make that happen? No. A creative, calm, connected, curious, right? Curiosity,
Compassionate,
we keep forgetting curiosity is self energy. Curiosity
compassionate.
was just like curious, right? Curiosity said, let me call Krasno and see if he can do a podcast. And then let me ask you about Topanga, right?
Mhm.
Hello. Sounds stupid, but but my makeup artist was like, "That all just fell into place like a domino in 30 minutes." Like, that feels really weird to me. I was like, "This
It
is
was this
how."
morning?
That was right before I came out.
Wow.
And so, like, but that whole, like, boom, 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 working out the details, that's how life is meant to be. We're meant to be in the flow and the awe and the synchronicity of self.
Yes. You talk about, in one of your books, becoming a super attractor. How can we become a super attractor by applying this method? Because it sounds like you applied the method and you wouldn't have been able to figure this out if you were in stress and control and manager freak out, control freak mode. You know, that little part of you is back in that, like, it needs to be a perfect pigtails or whatever. So how can you attract abundantly without managing the parts of us that are wounded?
So we wouldn't want to manage the parts of us. We'd want to bring self. We wouldn't let self help them, right? Just for language purposes. Um,
So it's not
and you
managing
can't,
them. You can't
right? Because managers are managing,
you
right?
can't manage the managers.
Yeah, you can't that's correct. Managing the managers is like when the firefighters come in or, that's right, that's manage. You're really getting it. It's so cool. People might have to listen to this episode twice or read the book, right? Read the book, right? It's all there. So there's no way that you can manifest effortlessly unless you have tended to these protector parts. Because you might have a lot of things that you can create in your life, but you're upper limiting yourself. You're going to hit glass ceilings.
You won't be able to break through certain levels.
Yeah. Because your sheer will can get you some of the way there and, whatever. And you might have a little bit of moments where that creative flow comes in, but then you just sort of block it again but to live in the flow,
Effortless.
to say it and it will be. This morning, I would like a retreat center and a home base in LA. And 30 seconds later, clarity and curiosity, call Jeff, get curious, blah, 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 blah. Because manifesting isn't about just sitting around, nothing happens. You're doing. But to be a super attractor and to be a co-creator, you have to dwell in the energy of creativity. You have to be calm. You have to be faithful, right? You have to be connected. You have to be courageous to take the action with that flow energy. You have to be curious about what's possible. You have to be creative, absolutely creative. Creative, creative, creative. You cannot be judging yourself. You have to be compassionate toward every part of who you are. And so we are all super attractors. We all have self in us. We all have the ability to live with ease no matter what our circumstances might be. But there are absolutely some of us who have far more privilege than others. Let's be real about that, right? Like for those of us that are in Western cultures, those of us who can watch this podcast right now, we have privilege. And those of us who have that privilege, it is our responsibility to do the self-help work, to clean up our side of the street, to get more flow in our life, because in that flow, we can serve more people,
Yes, that's
period.
true. And isn't it amazing? And I'm sure people watching or listening right now have had those moments. I'm sure everyone has had those moments where like, God, I feel it's just like things aren't working and I'm frustrated, but then you get centered. Maybe you didn't know you were doing some of these steps, but you get recentered and you say, in a world of possibilities, what can I create? And you call a friend and you say, I'm struggling with this thing. And it's like, who do we know that could help with this? Let's start brainstorming. You start to get creative. You don't even know you're doing these steps, but you start to say, like, we need to find a solution. Who do we know? Who can we call? Who can do this for us? Who can support us? And you kind of naturally do these things, right? I feel like everyone watching or listening has probably had those moments where it's like, wow, a synchronicity came up, or the idea to call this person like you did came up and everything fell into place.
Yes.
And I think the goal with this book, which I'm understanding, is to give people the tools on how to do that every single day.
Make that the normal.
The norm, not like this happened like twice a year.
And here's, yeah.
For
Yeah.
most people, it's like once a year, maybe.
Yeah, because it's an important point. We all have self, we have moments of self, but we live in protectors.
Yes.
And so the more self-help that we do, in this case, IFS-informed self-help that we do, that I'm suggesting, the more our protectors start to become unburdened, the more harmonious we feel inside. And when we start to feel that inner balance and that inner harmony and that inner connection and that inner clarity and calmness, our life just becomes this happy dream.
Here's something that I've realized, which most of my life that you've known me, I was like working my butt off to create and to generate results. And I was getting them, right? And New York Times bestseller and all these different things happen just like you. It's like, We're able to build businesses and launch stuff and do things. But I remember feeling like I was a 6 or a 7 out of a 10, like internally, you know,
Me too.
consistently. I was like living my, and sometimes like 4, 3 or 4. And I was like, I don't know how I'm able to get these results. Feeling so emotionally drained, feeling disconnected at times, feeling frustrated or anxious or obsessive or whatever the feelings I was feeling, the parts of me that were coming out. And I remember just thinking, God, I wonder what life would be like if I was at like an 8, 9, or 10 consistently, internally,
Yeah.
with self, but also in relationship with, an intimate partner, which I never had really a healthy relationship with. And I'm not here to talk about previous relationships or blame anyone. It was more my work that I needed to do.
It was your parts, right? Can you
It's the
see how
parts
now
of
that
me,
really
yeah,
burdened
that
parts were
attracted certain
attracting
people,
that?
that
Yeah.
stayed in relationships, that was
Mhm.
afraid to get out,
Acting out in
didn't
that
have the courage, all these
pattern.
things. Yeah.
Mhm.
But the thing that I've noticed that, man, life has gotten so good when you can create that self-help for self and you can blend it with another person who's also doing that work. It is magic.
Yes, full chills
It is
right
like
now.
a, I don't know, magical potion that you just, there, there isn't a day that goes by where Martha and I don't look at each other and, or we look at each other where we say, God, life is incredible. It's almost daily. Now, there's still life that's happening. She's gone through some extreme challenges earlier this year, family members having some different pains and sicknesses and diseases, and there's still life that's happening. There's still bad things that are happening, and grief and sadness and loss and anxieties. But for the most part, we're able to bring it back to the higher self, even while being in those emotions of sadness and fear and anxiety that happen in life and frustrations in business or whatever it might be. But we're able to bring it back to self individually and together. And when you can blend it in a relationship, from my experience, what I've noticed, just you're two super attractors that are attracting and manifesting together. It is unbelievable. And life feels like anything is possible. And it's also like anything is possible and I don't need anything else.
That's right.
It's like more is coming, and if it doesn't come, I'm so happy without it.
You're defining the dream scenario, which isn't a dream. Let's not call it a dream. The way it's supposed to be, right? What we all have the capacity of having. And what it is two humans who have done a tremendous amount of self-help work in whatever form that came, that healed and got to a place of core safety inside. And when two safe humans come together, magic can happen.
Man, you can create.
And you keep doing the self-help work, right? It's not like you're still curious every day. What more can I do? How can I help little Lewis? What can I do? Like the the part of you that was actually so successful, but at a 6 or a 4, you were living with self-like qualities, right? So it was almost like you can
Yeah, it's
be
there.
you can feel creativity here. You
Yeah.
can
It's just
feel that connection
it's not
there,
as flowing
but
and
it's
not as
not in a
consistent.
flow. It's not, it's not harmonious,
Uh-huh.
right? But it's still great and it's still there. And that's the way many successful people live. It's like you're like, this thing is all great here, but I still feel like inside. You know what I mean? So, and that's very common. But I want to sort of make people feel seen in this conversation right now, which is that we all have exiles. We all have protectors. We all have lived, and we'll see them. But the more the reality, the bottom line is the promise is that the more you tend to these young parts of yourself inside and care for them, starting with a book like this, and then maybe taking it to therapy, and then whatever it is, maybe it's not my books and somebody else's, whatever that is, going deep into the inner healing. The more free you are inside, the more free your life becomes. The more free flowing, the more you attract, the more you manifest, and the more steady, stable, and safe you are when big happens.
Consistently. I'll give an example. Recently, I had my event, Summit of Greatness, recently. And Esther Perel, I'm interviewing Esther on stage at one point. And we had a massive mess up in terms of the production. This has never happened to me in 7 or 8 years of doing this event. And we have this whole introduction. You've spoken at my
Oh,
event.
it's the
We have
best.
this
The
whole
intro is so great.
introduction with the
Yeah.
music and
Yeah, yeah, it's the
the
best moment.
fire and the smoke and the video of the
Yeah, it's like
person on screen, and then
pyro.
they're supposed to come out, and we played the video, and Esther wasn't ready. So
Oh.
the whole video, people are screaming for her, cheering, and Matt backstage is like, "She's not ready," he's screaming
Oh
at me on
my
stage.
god. Oh my god.
And there was a part of me, I go back and I look at Matt while everyone's standing ovation, there's no one on stage. And I just think to myself, well, it's an opportunity. I go, the show must go on. And how can I show up? How can I show up as a higher self
Yeah.
and not a frustrated part of me, right? How can I show up and make the most of this? And so I go out on stage and I go, hey guys, uh, you know, I made a mistake. And I'm Mr. Pearl. I kind of made a joke. I go, I'm Mr. Pearl. I made a mistake. Esther's not ready. So we're gonna do this all over again in a little bit when she comes
Yeah,
back.
yeah,
And
yeah,
let's,
exactly.
and just to let you guys know that life doesn't always happen perfectly, and there's certain things that are in your control, and you just try to own the moment and make the most of it.
That's the whole thing.
And even though it felt like this massive breakdown, and it was in terms of what we wanted to create,
Yeah.
I know that I could go into my wounded part of me that is frustrated that someone on my team didn't get the right cue, or we messed up the timing, or someone wasn't paying attention, or I wasn't doing the right thing, whatever it is. I could have gone right into blame, frustration, anger, perfectionism, like it needs to look a certain way. Embarrassment, shame, like, oh no, Esther's gonna feel angry at me. I don't know, whatever these younger parts of me that felt wounded. But quickly, I was just like, how can we manage this the best way possible? And how can I serve people? And so I went back on stage and I said, I'm here to serve. And we did like a 10-minute Q&A until I got the cue that she was ready. And we did it all over again. And it was fun. And Esther on stage, when we were doing the interview, she didn't really know this was happening. Like she was in her green room, but on stage, she was like, what is a part of you that is, evolved, or that used to be something that would affect someone in a relationship with you that would be maybe unbearable or something? And I said, well, this all happened just now. And there was also like noise happening in the background behind stage, was very distracting. Like, I don't know who it was, but people were like making noise and things were slamming while we're on stage during this interview. And I said, the old part of me would have probably stopped this interview in front of 4,000 plus people and like screamed at people in the back. They're like, guys, what are you doing? Shut up. We're in the middle of this. Like, be quiet. Like 5, 8 years ago, the old me. I would have freaked out on people for like messing things up behind the scenes, whatever it is. The old part of me would have done that. But the new part of me is just like managing it in my mind and just saying it's all going to be okay. There's some disturbance. They're going to handle it. Don't try to control it all. Be as present as I can be. It's not exactly the way I want it to be, but be as present as I can be and serve. It just went back into service.
Yes.
How can I serve even though it's not perfect, even though it's uncomfortable, even though there's disturbances, even though it didn't flow the right way? How can I get back to service? And I felt myself very calm. I didn't feel like angry or frustrated. I was like annoyed, but I didn't go back into the wounded part of me that would freak out.
Because you've unburdened that part of yourself. Yeah, because you've brought so much self-energy to him,
And
to that part.
and it feels, again, in those moments, there's stressful moments that you're like, oh, I don't like this,
Yeah.
but you don't have to react to it.
Well, that's actually one of the benefits of starting to have more access to self, right? Because remember, we all have self. So it's not like you're getting something. You're just creating more access
Capital
to it.
self, right?
Yeah, self energy, that energy of calm, connection, compassion, curiosity, right? So that calmness that you had there was a result of you having done all this great transformational work on yourself. And so now, as this adult, resourced, beautiful soul, not like literal adult, right? Because you are an adult, but like there's just sort of this like new nature.
Emotional adult, yeah.
Correct. You can care for yourself in different ways. You feel less burdened. You're not as extreme or reactive. And so when things that used to burden you happen, you can actually be more calm in those experiences. And that's because you've established a stronger access to self energy. And like I said, we never lose self. We've just blocked it. It's been the sun behind the clouds. And I want to make sure I quote the right person. I think it was Stephen Krantz, the sun behind the clouds. And we start to release those clouds and the sun starts to shine. And so in that presence of that sun that you live in, that light that you live in now, these annoying situations can happen and you can actually turn them into magic and gold.
Yeah.
Give people an extra Q&A, witness yourself in a transformation, use it as a tool, you know,
A teaching moment
and
or
I
whatever it
also
is.
want to point out, like, this is you can do all this work and all this work and still freak out, right? So, like the other day, we're in your studio, and I was sort of in my old. It was in a studio I work in New York, and it's just like the lighting's so. And I walked in, and like the controller was hardcore, and I love the people that work there; they're so beautiful. But I was just like, "This lighting's crap. Like, fix this lighting. It's making me look like a skeleton. Like, I don't like this. This is like I might as well." I was like, kind of in that place. I was like, "I might as well not even." A little girl, right? Like, I might as well not even. Why am I even shooting the video? I should just do the audio. Like, this is bad. We have to fix this. And then I calmed down. I did it. Checked in. I went into the back room. I checked in. Came back out. I said, "Guys, it's totally freaking out, and I'm still quite serious about the lighting, and it's something I really want to fix. And I'm actually going to move some lights around right now with your permission. But and I'm going to send an email personally and from my producer to the studio because I want to work on the situation. It's a problem, but it's not, but you guys are great. And like, I love you. And I thank you for bearing
Not your
with me.
fault. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for letting me be controlling in that moment and just being so calm in my presence, even whatever. So you're going to have, it's your comeback rate, right? I walked in and I was in this attitude of like, what the is going on here, right? The little girl,
Yeah, yeah,
pigtails.
yeah.
And I checked in, came back new,
Yeah.
any moment.
I think that's really interesting what you said because we're all human beings. We're gonna have human moments. Um, it's when someone is willing to take accountability, that's when you have more respect for that person and trust for that person. Like,
Absolutely.
and hopefully we can catch ourselves within 5 to 20 minutes or whatever and just, listen, I had a freak out moment.
That's right.
I own it. I apologize. It's not about you guys. I was doing my own stuff. And when you can do that, you can mend those relationships faster
They
too.
become even more connected.
Exactly.
That's what they call in IFS, speak for the part, not as the part.
How does that look?
So you had that experience happen on stage. It wasn't what you wanted. It was a little bit of a show. There was noise in the background. It's not like you're so zen now that you don't give a crap and that you don't say anything or you don't ask your team to do it better. But old Lewis might have been like, as the part, what the guys, what's going on here? How could you let me down like this? Why are you doing this? Make everybody leave feeling shame and blamed. Of course, we all have. Adult resource self connected, self with a capital S connected Lewis can maybe next week, we do a postmortem on the event. And you're like, you know what, guys? I'm going to speak for the part of me that was pretty activated. It was like I was on the stage and I was kind of like frustrated. And I just want to speak for that because like it's real. And like I really want this team to be the best that we can be. And with no blame or shame or all, I just want to really just highlight this area that things could have been a little bit different. Maybe you guys, I'm curious, like, do you guys have any ideas of things that we could do differently next time? And, I just want to make sure we connect on that. Even use the C words, right? Like, I'm curious, can we connect on that? And, do you have any creative ideas or possibilities for
Yeah.
how we could do it
I'm trying to
differently?
get clarity here. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's not even about the words, it's the energy, right? If you could say anything to someone, Lewis, as long as you're in self. Now, that's a tricky thing to say, right? It's not like you can't say say a racist comment to somebody in self energy, but you can say far more difficult things in self than you otherwise would ever be able to say. And if you don't have self and you're saying all the right things, won't work.
That's true. It's so interesting you said that because it brought something up for me. I have so many memories from childhood and my teen years where kind of mentors and leaders that I was around, coaches, teachers, speakers when I went to events. I don't remember a lot of things they said, but I remember the energy, right? The energy they brought to me. I think Maya Angelou talks about like
You'll
people
remember how
remember.
they make you feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I remember this specific moment. I've said this every time I met with Tony Robbins. My dad bought 2 tickets to one of his events for me and my mom when I was 16, and it was a big arena tour. It was like 15,000 people. It wasn't his main UPW. It was like a 3-day multi-speaker thing that he used to do. He no longer does. And my dad got us seats. Imagine like a basketball arena, like a big NBA arena. But we're sitting kind of on the court with seats, like tons of rows in the court. And I'm sitting, in the half court and the stage is over by the end of the arena. And he gets off stage and walks down and he's getting closer to me. And this is the first time I've ever been to a Tony Robbins event and really even knew anything about him. 16 years old. He walks down and he stops like right next to me in the aisle. And I'm like looking up at Tony and it was like this massive presence. I still to this day, I don't remember what he said, but like he spoke to the audience for maybe 60 seconds and his energy was so magnetic. It was so in self. he was in the flow. He
That's
was
right.
like
He was in
in the
his
zone. I get
creative
chills just thinking
force.
about
Mm.
the energy he was bringing and the connectedness he was to each person. It was like he's speaking to everyone. Look in your eyes, but to 15,000 people, and really landing his points. And I remember just thinking, I want to have that energy. I want to bring that energy to life in my sports at the time. I was a high school athlete, and I want to bring that level of service to people. And it's like a moment. It was like a memory. It was a moment that, like, if that wouldn't have happened, maybe I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing.
Totally.
Maybe I wanted to be creating the way I'm creating to serve and find tools and strategies to help people. So, and interviewing people like yourself. And I have that with coaches. That was like moments where they like stopped us in the court and like said something, but it wasn't what they said. It's how they connected
Yeah,
with us.
that's right.
And I'm being like, wow, I really feel that presence, that trust, that respect of that individual, that they care, that they want us to improve, that they're trying to like be there for it. They're sacrificing. Teachers like stepping up for me, like
Wow.
after class when I'm struggling, and being their presence, their energy. Sure, they helped me how to like read and write better, but it was like their caringness.
It's so beautiful what you're describing your experience of being in the presence of self.
Yeah,
And think about, and it's not necessarily for the viewer that everyone's going to be the next Lewis Howes or the next Tony Robbins, right? In this instance, like Tony's presence reflected back to you the presence you were ready to step into.
absolutely. Something I wanted that I was like, wow, that's really cool.
But
Yeah.
that's everyone. That's for everyone. So we can all access our own inner Tony Robbins self, the creativity, the courage, the compassion, the connection, that laser focus that he has is all self energy. I just saw a spark of light over you, by the way. That's when I see the angels in the room. And so the okay, so now I'm channeling. So that connection, that fluid connection is for every single listener, every single person watching, because it doesn't matter what you do with it, right? The most important thing you do with it is you bring it to your kids, or the children in your
The
life.
energy, yes.
That presence, it doesn't matter if you're Tony Robbins, you're the next president of the United States, or you're an adult figure in a child's life, is equally as important. The adult, when we access self and we can bring that self energy to the young people in our world, think about much how much self-help work we're doing for them, right? Because if a child has presence of self-energy in their life, their protectors feel safer, they become less burdened adults. That's how we change the world. That's how we change the world. All the political issues that we have, all the wars that we have, that's just protector parts at war with each other. It's all young, wounded children
Isn't that crazy?
in
Like,
power.
I was just thinking about, yeah, and when we bring self-help and start to heal the parts of ourselves, we're not going to have that chaos in the world. If every person is doing this work and tending to the parts of us that feel traumatized or wounded, we don't need managers and firefighters to protect us.
Nope.
And we have the courage to communicate differently. We have the courage to love differently and to have compassion for someone else's point of view and say, okay, that's not what I agree with or believe with, but let's find a way where we can come together somehow, as opposed to let's fight and I'm going to win and you're going to lose on all sides, right?
It's
It's
what
finding
Dick
that.
Schwartz calls self-led leadership. Okay. So, as I access more self, I can lead my team with more self, right? So leaders who have that self energy, and I can name a few, definitely like a Michelle Obama or Barack Obama. I think I don't want to be just so political, but there's Oprah's self-led leader, right? Um, Not just even famous people, right? Like the teachers that you were talking about, or those coaches in those moments, self-led leaders have such a profound impact. You were just describing it, right? As a kid, these coaches and teachers in these moments offered self energy to you, impacted you tremendously, and created a pathway for you.
Mhm.
And so
And imprint in
it
you.
imprinted
Yeah,
upon
yeah.
you.
And I still
Exactly.
remember these moments.
So asking yourself, when I'm with my child or a child, am I calm? Am I connected? Am I curious? Am I courageous? Am I feeling any kind of creative energy or compassion, curiosity? The curiosity is the big one with kids too.
Yes.
And, this year I'm going to create something new, and it's going to be called self-impact training. And it's going to teach leaders predominantly how to master this.
Wow.
Because but not just leaders, just humans, right? But people that want to make an impact, not just leaders, anyone that wants to make an impact, to come through with this. We can't do the big work that we're here to do in the world if our child parts are doing it.
That's true.
You can't run your business like the 10-year-old self. You can't, make a movement when you're constantly in your addiction, right? You can't, it doesn't work. So we have to heal ourselves.
In the book, again, we're talking about this book here, Self-Help. Make sure you guys grab a copy. In this book, you say, those terrifying moments in life are the catalyst for our greatest awakening and transformation. They are the moments that crack us open to the possibility of believing something new. They are the moments when we surrender enough to let self help. This self-impact training, which I don't know if you knew this, is SIT, if
Oh,
it's
cool.
an
That's actually
acronym.
quite good.
You know,
Sit your down.
it's essentially you need to like sit down and surrender.
Yeah.
It sounds like, because a lot of people are in stress and chaos and they feel like they need to control and like take action on something. But sometimes we need to stop taking action if it's a wounded action, and we start sitting,
Mm-hmm.
surrendering, and going through these steps in the process.
Absolutely. I think that sometimes the best advice that I can give somebody is to stop. Stop doing what you're doing because you're doing it from a place that's a protector. And so it's stop and check in, sit and check in. First step of having the choice to check in is that moment when you let that light come in, right? It's the cracking open to what's possible. I always share this Rumi quote. It's my favorite quote. I've shared it here on this podcast before. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Those wounded parts of ourselves are our greatest opportunities for transformational growth and extreme development. And here's what I believe as a spiritual teacher. I believe that before we come into this body in this way, we sit down with our guides, our angels. And there's actually, it's always what I believe. It was reinforced to me recently by this medium. It's like, yeah, that is exactly what happens. You sit down with your guides and your angels, and you're looking at this list of life that you want to have. And you say, okay, well, who do I want to be? What do I want to go through? What are the experiences that I want to have so that I can learn the lessons that I am here to learn, so that I can pursue whatever it is that this lifetime is meant for me. And I believe that you and I both sat there with our guides and we said, we're going to have this abuse as children, and we're going to have these extreme experiences, and we're going to do, and I'm not going to put that on you. I'll put it on myself, right? And I'm going to have these experiences of trauma and attachment wounds and severe cocaine addiction and, physical issues and, remembering the trauma, all of it. Check, 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 check. As a journey back to self. And I
Wow.
recognize that none of it is an accident. There are no bad parts of who I am. As Dick always says, no bad parts. And I chose this path so I could unlearn the wounds of the world and remember the light and the self of who I am. And no one is different. I mean, everyone take it or leave it. They don't have to have my spiritual faith. I don't
Sure,
care,
sure.
right? But if you can start to see and witness these parts of yourself, Dick says there's no bad parts. And so as you start to witness these parts of yourself through that lens of compassion. Lewis, I was a fellow for a while at this recovery center near my home. And I would go in every month, and each month it would be a new group of 100 people that were because it was a 21-day program. So each month it was new people.
In the
They were
addiction
in
program,
the addiction
recovery program.
And the
Yeah.
majority of them had 1 to 2 days clean. Okay, because they were new. It was like a new wave of people. And I'd come in and I would teach some of this work. And I would suggest to them that the addict was just trying to protect them.
Yes.
And I'd give them I'd offer them the opportunity to consider that, right? Because when you're deep in your addiction, you're like, nope, I hate this part of myself. This part of myself is ruined by life. I'm a shame. I'm a horrible person. I'm. And to just even slightly tease that out a little and say, well, everybody here in this room, what is your addiction protecting you from? And every single one of them would say this trauma and that trauma and this trauma and that. There's just trauma stories flying through the room. And then we'd say, okay, well, so if you had this extreme experience that you don't know how to manage, and you've been using this thing to manage those big feelings, you see how it's been trying to protect you? And when you look at it through that lens, how do you feel? And everyone in the room would say compassion.
Yeah.
Not everyone was ready for the
Sure,
compassion,
sure,
but
sure,
it would
sure.
come through.
When someone is going through addiction or someone is addicted to something, you're addicted to drugs mostly or
Cocaine and alcohol, yeah.
cocaine and alcohol. But when someone is addicted to drugs, alcohol, sex, porn, whatever it is, lying,
Well, work,
stealing,
I also had,
work,
I
yeah, yeah.
had food, work, love,
Sure,
I
sure.
was like multifaceted in my
Right, right.
addiction.
People, whatever it might be. But if someone is addicted to anything and has an extreme addiction to that thing, what is that saying about them or the parts of them?
What it's saying is they have extreme traumatized little exiles inside, and they've done everything they could to manage those feelings, and that management didn't work anymore, and the firefighter of addiction has stepped in to put out the fire.
Interesting.
And they deserve compassion, they deserve connection. Now, if you're someone who's in a relationship with an addict and you've, tried your best to do all the things, sometimes the most kind and loving and compassionate thing to do is to cut yourself off.
Wow.
And I say that because this is sort of the premise of some of the 12-step work, which is some of the Al-Anon work, which is, well, let's not say Al-Anon, some of the codependency recovery work is really that, you you don't enable the addict, right? But you have to trust that they have self inside.
How hard is it to end an extreme addiction?
Depends on how much you want it. As a cocaine addict, right? So it also depends on the drug of choice, right? Because if you're trying to get off heroin, it's very different than getting off cocaine, right? You get off cocaine, you just feel better right away. Like, you might detox a little bit, but ultimately you just feel like, you're just like, whoa, I feel better today. I'm not anxious. I'm not crawling out of my skin. Whereas coming off of, heroin or opioids, I mean, that's brutal. You deserve detox. You deserve support. Go to an ER and get the detox that you need. Get whatever support that you need, because that's a different journey. But if you want it, and that's the question. I think all these addicts might be like, well, of course I want it, right? But I want to be careful with what I say, because everybody would want it, right? They would want it, but there might be parts of you still that want to lean it, hold on,
Of
right?
course,
They
because it
want
makes you
to,
feel safer.
makes them feel safe,
There's a relief.
or that's the way that they, think that the only way they think they can get ahead, or it's still fun, or whatever, right? Sometimes it's when we hit those big bottoms that we really stay clean and get clean, oftentimes, because it's no longer fun. Like, it's like so destructive. We don't want it anymore. For me, that was the case. I just didn't want it anymore. I struggled for several months in and out of this therapy that I was doing. And like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a cocaine addict. Blah, blah, blah. I just kept going back out, or I'll drink. I won't do coke. And then I always end up doing coke. And then finally
Wow.
I found my way into a program, and into a self-guided program. And I got myself clean and sober, with the group. And I didn't go to treatment, but I did get my program, and I swear it worked for me. Actually, in a week, I'm celebrating 19 years. Well, actually, no, let's say that this is January now.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, a few months ago, I just celebrated 19 years of sobriety. So now I'm 19 years sober.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. And I wanted it. But also that desire and that willingness is really the whole thing.
It's almost like you have to commit your whole life to being sober, clean, like breaking the addiction. You have to almost commit, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to set myself free. And that might be painful to look at the parts of you in other ways.
But it's slow. They say in 12 steps, like, keep it simple, stupid. And, it's like slow and steady. And people always would say it to me, like, early in recovery, like, I wish you a slow recovery. And because you don't want to try to be, 20 years sober today. It's not going to happen. And I can look back almost 2 decades now and say every part of that journey was exactly as it needed to be.
Yes.
And the thing that's nice about the willingness and the wanting it is that if you do find your way to whatever kind of recovery path you find, it does feel good when you start to get a little bit of it.
Absolutely.
And then you want to reach for more and reach for more. And
Yeah,
reach for
bit of
more.
that momentum. Speaking of the new year, we're in the new year. If people are watching or listening to this now, if you could give people, there's a lot of things that have happened in the last few years, a lot of chaos in the world for people. There's a lot of financial up and down, social up and down, relational up and down, health up and down, political up and down. But if someone is watching or listening right now and they're saying, I just really want to create a new baseline for myself to start manifesting in 2025 in a beautiful way, in a way that I've never done it before. And if they're watching this and they're thinking, what's the best way to manifest after all the crap that we've been through in life, them individually, or the crap that the world has been through, what's the best way that they can start manifesting in 2025 and beyond?
So there's 4 steps. Choose to check in with the parts of you that are burdened. Become curious about those parts and let them talk to you. Be curious. What do I need to know about these burden beliefs that I've had over the last 3 years and what I'm carrying? Check in, become curious, extend compassion by asking, what do you need? And then let those C qualities emerge. I'm telling you, I mean, it's like from now on, for the rest of my life, people are like, well, what do I do to manifest? And I just be like, check in. Check in and check in and check in more. 4-step check in. Do it more and more and more. This is the secret. This is the key to manifesting. We manifest what we believe, and that was some of the first words out of my mouth here today. And so, how do you want to change the patterns and burdens, and how do you want to attract more of what you want into your life? You tend to the belief systems that are holding you back with this 4-step check-in process.
That's it. That's the process.
Yeah.
The book is self-help. This is your chance to change your life. Like Gabby Bernstein, make sure you guys pick up a few copies. I love this because it's simple, it's short. So for me, it feels very manageable when I'm reading it. It's like, it's easy to read. So make sure you guys check this out. The 4-step check-in process to transform the patterns that have held you back. And you mentioned this before, that we always hear about these limiting beliefs that are blocking us, that are holding us back. But a lot of times people don't talk about these steps on how to break through those limiting beliefs. And I really love the approach to the IFS approach, because it's looking within at the parts of us that are holding us back. And these parts of us are blocking us and limiting us to break free in what we want, whether it's creating a better relationship or manifesting something in our career or business, whatever it might be. And so those are the things that are limiting us. The things that have been trying to protect us for so long are actually helpful in certain ways, but not every way. So we
Yeah.
need to have a new relationship from a place of capital self, higher self within us, and start tending to those parts of us that have been holding us back, that have been limiting us, and incorporating a new healthy whole relationship with them so that they can support and elevate all of you. And I think when you can follow Gabby's process, it is going to make it seem more relatable. It's going to make it feel more simplified and less confusing and daunting, because some of these things in therapy can be extremely daunting to, like, just even sitting down with someone for an hour and hearing some terminology. It's like, I'm exhausted already. Let me just get back to my life and being addicted because that's what I know.
Yeah.
And so allow yourself to start sitting, start checking in with yourself, start reflecting, and following these 4 steps in this book. And it'll really help you transform your life. So Gabby, thank you so much for doing this. This is amazing. I'm excited for everyone to get this. And again, make sure you guys get a few copies. Give it to friends. It's great to start off the year 2025. If you have anyone in your life who maybe feels blocked in any way, give them a copy of the book so that they can be supported as well. Any final thoughts for you guys?
I just want to say something to you. So on behalf of all your listeners and viewers, because I meet people all the time that flip out when they find out I'm friends with you, because you've really helped heal them or helped them, given them the resources to heal. And with your wisdom and with your interviews, but most importantly, with your self energy. And as a friend of yours and someone who feels so seen and safe and connected and supported, right here, right now, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I want you to feel how grateful I am to have a presence of self like you in my life. And on behalf of all of your beautiful community out there, because I think they're all going to say this in the comments. Everyone, tell Lewis how much you love him.
I appreciate it. Thanks,
You
Gabby.
deserve it.
Appreciate it.
I love you.
Love you too. I appreciate it. Get the book. Follow Gabby everywhere online. You got an amazing podcast as well. What else can we do to support you? How can we support you?
And, people who like this work that want more support with it, go to deargabby.com/app, because there's my Dear Gabby coaching membership, and inside it is a lot more self-help guidance, just extra processes here, but affirmations you can pull, 2-minute exercises, long deep dive coaching. It's your coach in your pocket, pretty much. So if you're like, I like what she's saying and I want more of her, that's the place to go.
Gabby, love you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
I love you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I hope you got some value from this episode as much as I did. If you did, please do me a favor and click the like button right now. If you like this, it's going to help share it out into the YouTube world even more for us. Please click that like button and leave a comment below on your biggest takeaway, or if you have any questions that you want me to follow up with. Also, subscribe to our channel, because when you do, you help us book even bigger guests, and I want you to have the best information out there in the world, because that's what the School of Greatness is all about. So make sure to subscribe right now, like this video, share a comment below on your biggest takeaway. And also, I've got some big news, a new book. If you're looking to create financial freedom in your life and you want more abundance and you want a richer life, then make sure to check out my new book, Make Money Easy. I think you're going to love this, and it's all about creating financial freedom. The link is below in the description, or you can go to makemoneyeasybook.com and check it out.
And so we build up all these different protection mechanisms around us to avoid ever having to face those impermissible wounds. And those protections could be achievement. They could look good on the outside. That's the scary thing, right? So workaholism can be really praised at times.